Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to 2023. It is January 9th, so I don't know if we can still say that, but I'm going to keep saying it. I am Ariel Zhang, Vice President of National Programs at Humane Rescue Alliance, and co-hosting with me today is Ed Jamison, CEO of Operation Kindness. We are super excited to kick off the year with one of my favorite topics, data, with Meaghan later. But before we get to that, we will throw it over to Irene for some grant winners.
Hi, everybody. Happy New Year's and the start of the new year. It's there are new opportunities to win grants. I'm happy to share with everybody the December 22 winners for the community conversations and for the Maddie's Pet Forum as well. But thank you to everybody who joins us when you can or watches these videos on demand and enters to win for your chance of up to $10,000 per month. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see that? All right. Good luck, everyone. Yeah. Our winners we had two winners for December, and each will receive $5,000. They are Kim White of Save Our Cats and Kittens, Inc. in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, and Julie Hall of Oracle Animal Rescue and Rehabilitation in Oracle, Arizona. For our Maddie's Pet Forum content creation winner, we have one winner of $3,000, and that is Shelby Bundy of Longmont Humane Society. So congratulations, everybody who won. And if you are on the call, please say a quick hello. And good luck to everybody else throughout the year. Thank you.
Congratulations to those winners, and we will now open it up to national updates.
I'll go first. John Dunn with Best Friends. Hi, sorry I just spoke over someone, but just we'll keep it going. John Dunn from Best Friends here. Let you know that we are now accepting speaker submissions for the 2023 Best Friends National Conference. It is going to be in Houston, Texas in August. It will be inside, I'm told, so that's good news. The period to submit speaker proposals, again, is now open. The deadline is February the 6th, so less than a month. It goes quick. You guys know that. Topic areas we're looking for, same as always, right? But tell us, are you out there just saving lives left and right, and you want to tell the world about it because you know if people are doing what you're doing where they are, then they can have the same kind of success. Please submit. Please come speak at our conference. Advocacy, community engagement, cat and dog specific life saving, field services, shelter ops, rescue ops, all of the things. As soon as I stop talking, I'll put a link in the chat where you can get more information and submit your proposal to speak at this year's Best Friends National Conference.
Hi, everybody. Dr. Sarah Pisano with Team Shelter and Maddie's Million Pet Challenge. I haven't seen you all for a while. Hi, Ed. Hi, everybody. Hi, Bobby. So good to see you all. So Maddie's Million Pet Challenge is our partnership with Team Shelter, University of California, University of Florida, and Open Door Veterinary Collective. And we still have pro bono consults available for 2023. So I will put the link in the chat, but FYI, we have a good reputation for being very supportive and very friendly. Maybe give some claps if you know this to be true to encourage people to apply. And I'll put my email in the chat as well if you have any questions ahead of time. Thanks.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Pisano. This is Vincent Medley with the Maddie's Human Animal Support Services Project. Excited to announce we are starting a podcast for this year called Pets, People, and Purpose that will be hosted by one of our other directors, Diaz Davis, and we are super excited. It'll feature content from inside and outside the industry, as well as work from our pilot shelters, and then also hopefully work that many of you are doing. So I am going to put my email in the chat if you are interested in being part of that. And I also am going to reach out to those of you, especially because I think this is a great place to get context for content for that.
Hi, everyone. This is Jennifer Comas from the Humane Society of the United States. And I am just here to remind us that our Animal Care Expo 2023 will be held on April 3rd through 6th in New Orleans this year. And our advanced registration rate closes on February 6th. So just wanted to remind everybody to try to register before that time to save a little bit of money. And I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat as well for registration.
Hi, everyone. It's Summer from Cuddly. Just wanted to let everyone know we hope your year is getting off to a great start. If you are interested in hearing about how we can help you with your supply wish list over at Cuddly Pet Pantry, now that we're entering our second year of Cuddly Pet Pantry, we are actually going to have an intro on Thursday at 3 p.m. I will put the registration link in the chat, and we would love for you to come and see how we can help your organization with supply donations. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. It's Allie from Good Pup, and I am here to announce that we are starting up a new webinar series starting this month. It's going to be on surrender prevention topics, and we're starting off in January with potty training challenges. So I will put a link in the chat, as well as a link to our website of where you can find our previous webinars, as well as more information about Good Pup and how we work with shelters and rescues. Thanks.
Hey folks, happy 2023. It's Kathy from Canada. Nice to see you, Ed. Just a reminder that registrations are open for the 2023 Summit for Animals in person in beautiful Victoria, British Columbia this year. So we hope to see at least some of you there. It's going to be May 2nd through the 5th, May 2nd being a deep dive training day, and the 3rd and 4th being the actual conference itself. So I'll drop the information in the chat. And as I said, register early and hope to see you there.
Amazing. Anybody else? Want to make sure that everybody has time to go. Going once, going twice. Okay. All right. I'm going to kick. Oh,
I'm sorry. I had to unmute it. Hi, I'm Justine Galat. I'm a grant writing consultant with Galat Grants, LLC, and I'm representing Animals and Society Institute on this call, who is my client. And I believe we have received funding from Maddie's fund in the past, and I just wanted to get on the call and learn a little bit more because I'm newer to the organization, and want to just learn learn and network. Thank you.
Amazing. Welcome to the call.
Thank you.
For those of you that are new here, we would love for you to introduce yourself in the chat as always, so that we can all meet each other. And thank you for being here weekly for these weekly community conversations, touching on different topics. And with that, I want to kick it off to this week's topic. Ed?
Yes. Hello, everybody. It is so good to see everyone after this long break. We've had to move the date of this talk for a while, but it's actually was one of the first topics that we came up with. Meaghan Swan-Wilson, I am fortunate, actually super fortunate that she works at Operation Kindness. She's a senior manager of data and logistics, and she has just been a game changer for us at Operation Kindness. I think that probably anybody on this call uses some level of data. I can think of a couple of points throughout my career where light bulbs just came on. One was I see Timmy Sullivan on the call here, but we were I was trying to figure out if I wanted Dogs Playing for Life to come into Cleveland, and looking at my base numbers, I'm like, we're doing good. And she's asking me these questions and length of stay, and I say this number. She's like, wow, that's even better than I thought. She's like, but have you broken down into this segment? Have you seen about this segment, are the ones that need these play groups the most? And I'm like, crap. And the light bulb came on that you have to start slicing and dicing things down. And then they make a whole world of difference. And I didn't need to worry about playgroup for animals who had a 3-day length of stay, but the ones who had a 33-day length of stay was 100% of what I had to focus on. Then I moved into Dallas, which was recording all of this data, and again, had a lot of high level baseline things, but for such a big moving, moving organization like that, very quickly I knew that I had to embrace the data and start breaking it down to make decisions. And I would say that if you have an organization and if you have anywhere near 1,000 animals or plus, you need to be having some level of data. And I know that this talk with Meaghan will really open your eyes to some things that you're missing some easy wins that you don't even realize, that as you start to break things down. Meaghan helped me put together, actually, I think a variation of this talk. I have not seen her presentation for today, but I gave it Measuring What Matters to Increase Life Saving at last year's Best Friends Conference. And I give a lot of talks. This is one that I hope to give variations of it over and over, and my teams to give variations over and over. Is very well received. And when you can see some things and some graphs and ideas, things will really, light bulbs will come on that I think will help everybody. What do we have? 240 almost 250 people on this call. I will be shocked if after listening to Meaghan talk for 30 minutes, if you will not at least be enlightened. And we encourage, you can message me. I'm going to pass you on to Meaghan because I don't pretend to be anywhere close to as smart as she is. But for all of us moving forward throughout this industry, you have to be using data, and then you'll be amazed at how you can just kind of stack on top of, I've got this data point, what can I break it down? And it'll be life-changing for you. So without any further ado, Meaghan, if I haven't told you, I appreciate you so much for the work that you do navigating the influenza. Anytime we have distemper outbreaks or parvo, she's got exposure reports that have just really taken Operation Kindness to the next level. And I wish I could take credit for it. All I can take credit for is hiring Meaghan, not actually writing all these reports and understanding them. So with that, go for it, Meaghan.
Thank you, Ed. That was a really nice introduction. Okay, let me share my screen here.
I'm having a little hard time hearing you, Meaghan.
Oh.
There's a little feedback.
I guess my recommendation would be to possibly turn off your video.
Yeah, I can do that.
But I do hear you pretty well now.
Is that better?
Well, let's keep going.
Okay.
Thank you.
You can see my screen now, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I am Meaghan Swan-Wilson. I'm very excited to be talking about Go with the Flow, increasing efficiencies using animal data. Sorry. So a little bit about Operation Kindness. We are a nonprofit organization in North Texas. Ed has talked about us a lot, but we are a managed intake facility, and we do about 78 to 80% of our intake is from transfer partners. We do try to specialize in medical cases and more recently underage kittens. So going with the flow. So this is a shorter presentation, so I'm going to try to cover a lot of topics very quickly, but do not worry if you're very passionate afterwards. I did talk to all of our main shelter databases in PetPoint, Chameleon, Shelter Love, and Shelter Buddy, and I got their recommendations specifically on what I'm talking about in the reporting. So if you use any of those databases, there'll be a worksheet in the chat about how you can move forward with these reporting options that I talk about. So first, we're going to be talking about finding your organization's animal flow, talking about reporting on stages and statuses, and how you can identify potential areas for improvement with your animal flow using these reports. We'll talk about population management and monitoring, and then monitoring your length of stay and in-care days. So population management and its connection to the overall flow and movement of animals can be really overwhelming. So where do you start? I would recommend looking at the flow of your animals in your organization. Start with the basics of what your general animal flow, pathways, and procedures are. So what is your organization's animal flow from intake to outcome? Keep in mind that an animal coming in as a stray versus a cruelty case versus an owner surrender will all have very different pathways depending on their intake type. What is your stage status flow? And when I'm talking about stage and status, we're going to go into that more, but that is the main field that you're using in your shelter database as a way to track where in the process your animal is. And if you don't have an animal database, I do recommend, if you're using something like Excel, potentially adding something like a stage or a status to be able to track those animals. What are the items happening at each stage or status?
Can I interrupt? Sorry to interrupt, Meaghan. We are still having a little trouble hearing you. Do you have a headset or something we might ask you to plug in, or earbuds? Maybe that'll help.
Yes, they are.
It's funny because you're sounding just great at the beginning of the call.
Okay. Is this better? I'm closer.
That sounds better. What do y'all think, everybody?
Well, you can't see me, but I kind of look ridiculous because I'm like right over my computer, so that's okay.
It's much better, Meaghan. Thank you.
Should I start over on this slide?
Yeah, why don't you start over on this slide?
Okay, so what is your organization's animal flow from intake to outcome? So the animal flow or pathway can differ depending on the intake type. An animal that's coming in as a stray will have a different pathway than one that comes in from a cruelty case or an owner surrender. So what is your stage and status flow? So the stage and status is a field that most main shelter databases have that tracks where in the process your animal is. And if you don't have a shelter database, you can use, sorry, someone came in with headphones. Thank you, Kelly.
Okay, is that better?
Oh, 100%.
Okay, great. Now I'm not like awkwardly over my computer. So if you aren't using a shelter database and instead you're using like Excel to track your animals, I would recommend looking at adding a stage column or something like that to be able to help track your animals and where they are. And then what items are happening at each stage or status that progress them to the next steps. So over here on the right is our Operation Kindness main stage flow. So every animal is coming in at intake. They're going to the stage of evaluate. That's because we don't do any stray holds here. From evaluate, they're either going to go to surgery if they're not altered, a vet exam if they're having medical issues, or they might move forward to available for adoption if they're previously altered and there aren't any issues. Then we also have a lot of subcategories off of our main stage flow of behavior, foster, and medical, with all the stages that are under those specific stage categories that each individual team knows and understands. So what is happening during each step as the animal is moving through your system? On intake, are they receiving an intake exam, a behavior exam? What is the identification process? Are they getting a microchip? When do they move forward to medical? Do they move forward to medical? Do they go to surgery if they are unaltered? Or do they move forward to available and then get adopted and come back for surgery? If they need medical treatment, what is the process with that? If they need a specialty surgery, how does that work for your organization? Do they move forward on site? Do they have to go to a specialist? Do they have to go to foster? Do you adopt them out? Do they go to a rescue partner? For behavior, if your organization has a behavior team, do you do behavior evaluations on every animal? Is it just ones that have behavior that need to be reevaluated? Do you have behavior modification on site, and what does that look like? Do you have behavior modification in foster? What about training plans? How is that tracked and communicated to your teams? And then for foster animals, how do you know if an animal needs to go to foster? How do you communicate to your fosters that an animal is needing placement? What happens when foster placement is found and they need to
Okay, somehow or other.
Did I get muted somehow?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Could be the storms, guys. So little patience for Mother Nature, maybe. No. Go ahead and see if that works, Meaghan.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, where do I need to start over?
Well, actually not too far back.
Okay. Should I go to behavior?
It was just for a second or two.
Okay. So if you have a foster program, how when you find foster placement, what is the process from pickup to drop off back at the shelter? So questions to ask yourself, what are the steps for each process and each team? Most importantly, who has ownership over each item? How is this information tracked and monitored? Is it in a shelter database? Do you have general SOPs or job aids for each area? And so these questions can be really overwhelming. And so one of my favorite things to do, if you don't actually have any SOPs or written job aids yet, is to think about, for your organization, what makes an animal available for adoption. That's a great way to start and look at your processes and flow, because ultimately our goal is always to make the animal available. So having that SOP be the first one you start on, if you don't have a starting point yet, is a great way. Okay. Whoa, sorry, I don't know what just happened. A lot of technical difficulties. I'm sorry. Okay, how do you know where the animal is in the process? How do you know what part of your flow the animal is currently in and what steps they need to move forward? How does each individual team know? So like we briefly touched on, stage and status. All main animal databases have a stage or status field for each animal that reporting can be pulled on. For Pet Point, it's called stage. For Shelter Love, Shelter Buddy, and Chameleon, it's called status. And then connected to that is substatus on several of these. So there's a secondary field that helps to track the animal's main stage and status. So an example of this would be if you have Shelter Buddy, you may be in the main medical stage of under vet care with the substatus of what that actual treatment is. Another way that you can track an animal through the process is scheduled items. So you might not necessarily be linked directly to a stage or status. You might be linked to the scheduled items of that animal. Are they scheduled for a medical exam, scheduled for behavior evaluations, review dates on exams, and then tasks, procedures, and activities, all of which can be reviewed to move forward? Or does your organization have a manual process, such as written lists, whiteboards, index cards, paper animal records? It's important to note that with manual processes, a lot of this data is not being actually tracked, which when looking at data, it makes it really hard to know where in your process you can look for improvements. And I will say, when I first started at Operation Kindness, we had a lot of written lists, a lot of whiteboards, and a lot of paper animal records that we were referring to for all of our medical cases. And we've now since switched over and transitioned to everything medical being entered into our shelter database, and then the reports automatically going out to the team. So looking at stage and statuses define process improvement opportunities. So most of the main shelter databases have stage status-based reporting that will look at length of stay in each stage, as well as the amount of animals that have been in those stages. So you can use stage status reporting to show you which stages your animals are staying in the longest, to be able to see if there's a process improvement opportunity. It's important to note that stages and statuses and substatuses are manual fields within most shelter databases. So it's critical that staff understands the stages within their processes, as well as the organizations, so that they're accurate and up to date. So up here are just some examples of our main stages broken down for species. So when we call them our main stages, those are the ones that the majority of our animals are going through. So they're coming in, they're going through evaluate, they go to a waiting spay neuter. Available waiting space is the stage that we use actual for animal movement. If they're in a holding area and need a spot on the adoption floor, they go into this stage, and then there's automatic reporting that goes to our kennel team to know and prioritize those animals to move forward. And then the stage of available. And as you can see, available right now is our longest amount of stage days that we have. So how can you use the data? So using the data instead of what you feel might be happening in your organization. So an example of this would be, you might feel that dogs are staying available for adoption longer, but you really need to look at that data and ensure that that is actually the case. So a good starting point
with all of this is to review the stages and statuses with the longest length of stay and days in care and the most days. And like I said, depending on the shelter database that you have, it will be posted in the chat for you to know which reports you can run for this to look at this data yourself. But does it match up to your organization's expectations? What is potentially contributing to an increased overall length of stay? Do a deeper dive into the data. Look at your stages and statuses that animals are in the longest and break it down further, looking at their species and their weight. So an example of this is over here. We have our canine mean manageable flow stages. And as you can see, like our overall average in available is 5.2 days, which isn't awful. But if you look at adult dogs over 40 pounds and over 60 pounds, you can see that that is a much longer stage in available than you would want. And so from this, we were able to make a plan to have pathways for our dogs that are over 40 pounds so that they're getting, newer photos and bios a little bit sooner in the process to ensure they have a better ability to get adopted, hopefully sooner than their average. So make stage and status-based goals. Use the data to make goals, often in conjunction with process updates to monitor progress both within that stage and your overall length of stay. And I'm going to go into some examples of that. And then review your organization's stage and statuses and sub-statuses. Do they match your organization's need and the flow of animals? Are you using all of them? Do some of them need to be updated? So some examples of this: intake exams. If every animal coming into your organization is getting an intake exam, take a look at how long it's taking for the intake exam to be completed. If the expectation is it should be, the day that they arrive and as soon as they arrive, but the data is showing another story, you want to take a look at your intake processes. And this is actually something that Operation Kindness looked at. So as you can see down here, in 2020, we were about at 2 days of our animals awaiting for an intake exam. And we looked at that and we didn't like that. And we wanted it to be obviously the same day and as soon as possible. And so we reevaluated our processes and had some updates. And now in this past year, we are down to 0.5 days for their intake exam. And we're going to keep improving on that. So another example would be under vet care inventory. If your reporting shows that animals are staying in medical stages or statuses longer, take a deeper look and see if there's anything process-wise that can move them through sooner. So we recently did this and we were meeting about goals, and we had a lot of under vet care, non-contagious, that we were thinking, well, there has to be something that we can do. So we're looking at our foster to adopt program, improving our medical foster program, and then looking at our processes themselves to see if we can just move forward and make them available with a consult instead of holding them back. So when looking at this, I just wanted to point this out. So you'll see that these statuses or stages are not the same as what we're using now. If you, after this presentation, you're so excited and you want to look at your stages and your statuses and update them, that's wonderful. But just keep in mind, when looking at year over year data, you'll want to make sure that you're mapping and writing down all of the differences that you're doing and the changes that you're making, so that when you look at previous years, you can track back to what those specific stages would have been, and you can accurately see the change over years. Okay, so areas where animals tend to get stuck sometimes as far as stage and status reporting. Medical. How do you track your medical population? How do you ensure no animal is getting stuck in a medical stage or status? And my recommendation would be to have a process in place for medical cases that ensures they have their next steps planned on every exam. So for Operation Kindness, on examination, there's only two options. The animal's either going to move forward or they're going to have a recheck date, and that ensures that no one falls through the cracks. For foster, how do you track your foster population? Do you have a streamlined process to ensure they're coming back when due for boosters or return? And then recommendation would be to have a process in place for foster cases that ensures they have their next steps scheduled on pickup, or it's on the foster to communicate when they are ready to return. And then utilize foster reporting. Every shelter database has it, to ensure that no one is staying too long in your foster care, because that can be like a secret underlying factor to an increased length of stay. And then the stage of available. Again, like we talked about previously, what makes an animal available for adoption, and do all your team members know it? And sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean that they're in the stage of available. That can be also multiple stages. So just keep that in mind. And then, are you tracking how long your animals are available for adoption? Do you have pathway options for animals after they have been available too long? So the recommendation for available is to have an available for adoption SOP that all staff are aware of. Have options based on how long an animal has been available. So have different pathways. If they hit a certain point, maybe decrease their fee, update their photos or bios. Perhaps they can become an adoption ambassador candidate or be featured on social media. So things to use this data with reporting wise. So days in care. Most shelter databases offer the reporting on current inventory by stage or status, and this will assist with daily population management. Stage-based reporting, like we've talked about, you can use this to see where the animals are spending the most time while they're in your care, and if improvements and processes are making a difference. You should hopefully see those stage-based days in care go down. Stage-based goals. This allows you to have measurable data goals for your staff to work towards. And then overall length of stay. You want to monitor your overall length of stay of your animals from intake to outcome, looking for trends to see if process updates are making an impact on your length of stay. So just to recap, we're going to go through all of this. I know that was a quick summary of a lot of things that you could do, but where to start? So we're going to go over what is your organization's animal flow again, reporting on stages and statuses, population management, and then monitoring your lengths of stay, and some examples of those. So questions about your organization's animal flow. Again, what is your stage status animal flow? Here at Operation Kindness, we just made this quick little visual for the staff to be able to easily see and understand the actual movement and flow of the animals. What are the items happening at each stage and status that progress the animal to the next steps? And how does each team know what they're doing and their part in the animal population that they're in charge of, and who has ownership of each step? Here's an example of an SOP. We just recently here at Operation Kindness redid a lot of our SOPs. So there's just an example of that. Here is our surgery list. So our surgery list, a lot of our medical lists are based off of stages, and these are automatic reports that we schedule to go out to those specific teams, so they know what they're doing for the day. They know where in the process the animal is and how to move them forward. So reporting on stage and statuses. Review your stage statuses with the longest length of stay in care and the most days. Do a deeper dive into that data to figure out where you can make improvements. Make stage and status-based goals. Review your organization's stages and statuses and sub-statuses. So this is just an example of a standard report from our database. It shows all of the animals' stages, how many animals have been in that stage. So something to keep in mind, if you have few animals in this stage, it might be an idea to look at it whether or not it's necessary or not. Total days in those stages, and then the average amount of days. And then here again is that example that I showed previously. Just when looking at your stages, do they make sense for your organization? Do they truly help you reflect the animal's flow and process? And so previously, when we had medical not available stage versus not available stage versus available, it made it really difficult for the staff to know specifically what was going on with that animal without having to dig in and find out to be able to move them forward, which is why you see such a higher amount of days and stages versus now. So population management. Use inventory reporting on stage and statuses to manage and monitor your animal population. And this will ensure that your animals are progressing through the system efficiently and improve your flow. So here's just an example, and again, another standard report. It's an animal inventory report by stage, shows their average length of stay in that stage and the amount of animals. And then these are a part of a daily dashboard that goes out on a daily basis that we review. But on-site population by stage, this is an important one. It gives you a really quick snapshot of where your population is by stage. So this is from a couple weeks ago, and this is a concerning example because, as you can see, our awaiting spay neuter was quite large. It's the largest portion of the stages, and that was because we had a couple days without a vet. But by looking at this, then we knew that we would have an animal flow issue that we needed to work on, and it would impact the next upcoming days. Look at your population by their location. So we have our main location, how many animals are in foster. You're looking at the species, the breakdown of that. If you have partners with retail partners, you can look and see how many are out there. On-site population, we also look at who's on the shelter side, who's in the clinic, who's in our kitten nursery, and how many animals are intake. And all of this helps with our daily population management and ensuring these animals are moving forward as quickly as possible. So monitoring your length of stay and in-care days. So by looking at the data related to your stage and statuses, along with population management, you can have a better idea of what's impacting your length of stay and in-care animals. So here's just an example. We look at a monthly basis, our length of stay from intake to outcome. We look at it broken down by species and then our overall average. In this example, you can see in November, our dog went up quite a bit, and that was because we had a canine influenza outbreak. So we also look at other stages that impact our in-care days. So these are stages that not necessarily the majority of our population is going through, but they are stages that enough animals go through for a certain length of time that they impact our in-care days and our length of stay. So this is what we look at. So this is just a cat one, and we were looking at goals this week. So as you can see, awaiting foster ringworm is quite a long time, along with under vet care and awaiting foster medical. And so from this, we've taken and made some goals to beef up our ringworm and foster medical programs, and also look at our under vet care, which I mentioned previously, moving them forward to foster to adopt, or can we update our process so that they can be moved forward to available with a consult. Lots of different options that you can look at by seeing which stages your animals are waiting in the longest. So in conclusion, I did talk, and I do appreciate everyone that I talked to at all these different shelter databases, but every single one of them really requested that if they're your user of them and you have questions or ideas or want to know how to best use that software, it's best to reach out to support and tell them exactly what you're looking for, your flow issues, and they can help you better utilize their shelter database to meet your needs. And as I mentioned, it'll be posted in the chat and then again later, but there is a document that I created based off the recommendations of all of these shelter databases on how you can run that stage and status-based reporting along with lengths of stay reporting. And they also just put in their recommendations on reporting in general and how to use their database. And that's it. And I love talking about this. So if you have any questions, I know that was like really quick. I could talk about it for hours, but I had to, squeeze it into 20 minutes. So I'm happy to answer any questions or talk one-on-one with anyone.
Meaghan, as always, awesome. I am so grateful for you. I know I'm probably gonna have people trying to steal you away from me, and that's how the game goes. But you, the work that you do is amazing. And I'm sure that we have questions. I saw questions pop up in the chat. But I think, do we want to do with raising hands since we still have some time here, and then we can try to do some answer straight out of the mouth. I know Brett had a couple of really good questions that if you can't answer, Meaghan, I can, because some of it had to do with change management and people following through on that. Brett, are you on? Are you able to talk?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah. You want to go ahead? You had a couple of good questions there.
Yeah. So I worked at a shelter where we had, much like Meaghan showed her report there that looked very familiar. We had tons of stages and huge issue with compliance on properly changing stages. And so animals would kind of get lost and stuck, and you had multiple departments that, this department might be responsible for changing this stage. This department might be responsible for changing that stage. So I guess my question is more like, how do you get the staff buy-in to actually, if you have so many different stages, keep on top of them?
So for here at Operation Kindness, it was, I think, I can't really speak to before I came over, but it seemed it was very similar to that, where animals would be switched to stages, and it was, no one knew exactly who specifically had ownership over which stage or how. So one of the first things we did was come up with the stage flow chart, and we went over it with all of the staff so that they understood, and we got their feedback on, what would be helpful for you as far as your stages and how this process works. And a lot of these stages are based on those specific teams. So they become very, very familiar with, these are my stages, and this is what happens when an animal's in this stage. I need to move them to this stage. And like I mentioned, that what makes an animal available for adoption, that was a big thing. That was something that was missing. And we came up with the SOP for that, and then went over it a lot with the different teams so that they understood, like, if you're making an animal available for adoption, you've double checked that all of these things are done. And there are some systems like Chameleon that will actually help do that for you automatically. But it is possible in all the databases. But really, we got the team buy-in by just talking to them about it and having visuals for them to see.
I think having that. Sorry, I was going to say, my follow-up question to that was, did you have a document that defined the stages and the ownership? And I think, and what to do if an animal potentially could qualify for 2 stages, how to define what trumped the other. And I think you just answered that too. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and I would say, like, so with Pet Point, you can have multiple stages. So we had it, if it fell, especially under vet care, if there might be qualify for multiple, the stage would go to the one that would take the most resources, and that has worked out well for us.
Yeah.
But there are different, like Shelter Buddy, you can have multiple statuses and stuff. So it just depends on the database that you have.
Yeah, we were stuck with Pet Point, and it became this whole thing of just a mess, and there was no document defining, and there was no flow chart, and it was very frustrating to move animals efficiently. So
yeah, finding your animal flow is of course is the best way to start it. And it's actually really fun to look at your stages and clean them up, like, hey, are we using this? Does this make sense? Can an animal get lost in it? And just make the best the best decision for your organization.
Awesome. And Meaghan, you can stop sharing your screen, and that'll bring up the cameras for everybody. And you got to love it. Meaghan, she literally loves data. She loves this. So she gets pretty excited about this. And that answered some of the things that I had jotted down on there. You have to identify your flow, even if you don't have it defined yet. If you don't truly understand the way that, whether you're animal control and you get a call and then all the way till final disposition, or you're limited admission like we are and are going out and strategically picking the animals coming in, it starts with that flow, and then everything starts to build from there. When I got to Dallas and we had this Jason Smith who was with Chameleon, he kept saying, you guys are asking the wrong question. You're getting there, but you're spending too much time on how you get there. When he really wanted to solve for A, we were asking to get like a math equation to get to A. And it's the flow is what will do that. I'm trying to find it right here on this chart. And then there's a report that can be written to find you that answer. Let's see. Dr. P just said, the more you flow, the more animals and people you can. It's spot on. Flow is so important. And then also just a quick piggyback on that. Yeah, any change is hard for staff. This stuff is hard. I think Meaghan's estimate of what we were using Operation Kindness was using Pet Point was somewhere probably only around 10% of what the capabilities were. You know, oh, it stinks, it can't do this. All the software that she's talked about here, they can do this stuff. You have to be asking the right questions and willing to put in the work to get to it. So what other questions do we have? Anybody want to raise their hand or unmute and ask?
Ed, we did have a question about downloading these slides, just to address that, because these slides will be going on Maddie's Pet Forum after the call, along with any other material for consumption at that point too.
Correct. And you I think you shared it once, I think at 1:39, it's shared in the chat right now that the presentation is, and then it'll be on the forum. Am I correct there? Yeah, Ariel,
what I shared was actually Meaghan's reference guide, and then her presentation will also be uploaded along with the reference guide to the Pet Forum.
Gotcha. Yeah, I made the mistake when I gave this presentation at Best Friends. I didn't focus on the graphs. They were more there for visuals, and everybody yelled at me, we want to see those graphs. So we'll make sure everybody can have those. What other questions do we have?
There was a question from Brett around if you have a chart and there are two stages, how do you define which one trumps the other stage, or if that's possible?
I think we got that answered.
Oh, sorry.
What else? I'm trying to go through the chat here because I know there were more questions in there. We got just a couple more minutes left. Anyone?
I had a question. This is Teresa from the BCSBCA. I was wondering if you would be willing to share SOPs and templates for reports, just so that we could review them, and it might be useful for helping us to improve our SOPs or see where our SOPs have some gaps.
The short answer is yes. I think the best would be to send an email with any specific, because we have everything. It's Kelly did a great job of putting it on SharePoint. So any specific things, and then we can send you example ones that are from Operation Kindness, if that helps.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. What else do we got here?
Hi, this is Sarah Price from Seattle Area Feline Rescue. I just had a bit of a question in and around your choice of the stages that you look at, whether your choice of how you define those stages has allowed you to address kind of time spent in each stage or delays equally, or whether different stages may have allowed you to address reducing the time spent in each stage better.
Yes to both. It's gotten to the point where everyone kind of wants stages for things to track, but you don't want to get too overzealous with your stages. But yes, we use our stages to be able to track and make goals for our teams, and it helps us. We look at our stages a lot just to see where we are and how we're doing, and what improvements we need to look at. Like we just spent a lot of time this past week looking at because we just hit our halfway mark on our fiscal and how we can meet our fiscal goals by decreasing our length of stay in certain stages. Does that answer your question?
It does, but I'm also, if I can be cheeky, jump in with the second one and say, do you have any resources for Animal Shelter Manager by any chance?
I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I can
no
reach
worries.
out to them if you want. I'm sure that like the other shelter databases that I talk to, they would be more than willing to answer any questions. I can send you the questions too that I sent out to the different databases if you want them, just to have
that
something.
Would be incredibly helpful, just something to start from. Thank you, Meaghan. I'll send you my email address, or I'll contact you by email.
Yeah, that would be, if you contact me by email, that'd be great.
Wonderful, thanks.
And I saw a couple of questions on return to home. With us not being animal control, that's not a main outcome for us. It does happen from time to time that people find the animal at our shelter, but we pull from all over Texas and Louisiana and New Mexico. So we're not the number one. We're very vigilant on making sure that finders are taking the animals to their local animal control so they can fulfill their whole time, and that's the best way they can find the home. But so that's not really in our flow, it can't happen. It's an outcome that can happen. But I can tell you at Dallas Animal Services, it was a huge part of the flow, and especially any animal that had identification, that was part of the flow. Hey, does the animal have anything? And then you had to do X, Y, and Z. If it had a microchip, a collar, a tag, things of that nature. That's 100% if you're an animal controller bringing in stray animals. That's your most favorable outcome if you can get that. Individual questions on a couple of the software companies that's a little hard for us to speak on. Pet Point is who we use, but Meaghan speaks with all of them. About question about foster and how to outcome. Again, it's another, for us, that's a stage, and we actually measure that. We've got a 50-page COO report that's given to me each month, looking back a month. And it's super important because animals can get stuck in foster. So you should 100% have the exact same type of flow things in there, or an animal has a really good chance of getting stuck in foster and just kind of forgotten about. You should be just as vigorous of trying to move those through your foster system to open them up and keep turning them out. That was one of the biggest reasons we were able to keep up with adoptions with influenza, was our animals coming out of foster. And I couldn't be more proud of how the team responded to that once we were able to start releasing animals and they weren't stuck in there. Are we at time now? I always forget. Are we supposed to try to wrap it up at 10 till or at the top of the hour?
We are at time. And so any further questions, Meaghan will be at Maddie's Pet Forum. And Ed, I'll let you close out the call.
Yeah, just thank you, everyone. It's nice to see so many people and engaged with this, and you could tell that there were things that were sparking interest with people. Again, I don't pretend to be the smartest person. I've never, ever pretended that, but I know what I need to know as far as being in charge of a shelter. And I've been very fortunate to be able to get really bright people to, one, identify those things, and then two, to be able to get them into the computer to, if you're still using computer, that's a whole nother chat we need to have, because your life will infinitely get better. So Maddie's, as always, thank you for allowing this time, this topic. Yes, this one's near and dear, and Meaghan's near and dear to my heart. Meaghan, thank you so much. You spent a lot to prepare this. And Ariel and the whole entire steering committee, thank you all. And I think that we are taking next week off for Martin Luther King Day. Is that correct? Are my weeks correct?
That is correct.
All right. Yep. And then we will be back at it the following week after. So everyone, it's great to see you. Let's hope for a really good 2023. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great one.